it fly?
And I think the thing that really makes a difference with monarch butterflies is that they are charismatic. It's a very accessible organism. It's got a very interesting life history. You've got these beautiful larvae with monarch butterflies. They're slow, they're easy to handle. The kids can put them in their hands, they can touch them. You can rear them on a plant that you can find on the roadsides. It's not a mysterious insect from that standpoint. It's easy to find, it's available. And then they form this beautiful chrysalis, which is really kind of awe-inspiring in itself because it has gold flecks on it. It looks like a piece of jade. Like any kid who finds a monarch caterpillar can bring it in and put it in a jar and throw a couple of leaves in there and rear this thing out and go, wow, man, this is cool. So, monarchs have got it. I mean, they've really got it.
When I was 5 years old, I had a babysitter that had a garden, and she collected, or let me collect, caterpillars and helped me raise them to butterflies. And I still remember those butterflies clinging to my shirt before they flew away. And I just have loved butterflies ever since.
There is no question that butterflies, particularly monarch butterflies, add joy to our lives. Beyond their charismatic, kid-friendly qualities, monarchs and other pollinators provide a service of incalculable value. 1/3 of the food on our table would not be possible without insect-borne pollination. Without bees and butterflies, our healthy diet would suffer. Ed Spivak is the curator of invertebrates at the St. Louis Zoo.
So most people may know butterflies, they may know that they're pollinators. The reason we need those species from just a human point of view is our own health and our own survival. When we look worldwide, about 75% of our crop species are dependent upon pollination. A lot of our diet is what's called wind pollinated plants, corn, rice, wheat, barley, oats. You could eat that, you could more or less survive on that, but it's not going to be healthy. So if you want nutrition, if you want color, if you want flavor, if you want taste, you want to live a long, healthy life, you need to think about the pollinators.
Monarch butterflies, along with other pollinator species, have experienced a dramatic decline over the past several decades. With its amazing life cycle, monarchs travel all the way to Mexico to select overwintering sites. It is particularly susceptible to habitat loss, climate change, and illegal logging in the overwinter sites. But perhaps most significant is a lack of milkweed plants.
For the monarch butterfly, which is where we've focused, the first component of their habitat is milkweed. If you don't have milkweed, you won't have monarchs. Milkweed is the only plant on which the females will lay their eggs, and it's the only plant on which the caterpillars feed. So if you don't have the milkweed, there's no place for the eggs to be laid, and there's nothing for the caterpillars to eat. So that's the first component, but it's more than milkweed. Once those caterpillars transform into adult butterflies, they require a nectaring source, so some sort of blooming plant that has a flower on it, that has nectar in it that they can feed on. Kind of a fourfold equation, if you will, for monarch butterflies. We need milkweed, and then we need blooming plants in the spring, the summer, and the fall.
Increasingly, we have an awareness that there are major issues on the horizon in regards to native pollinators. I've long been aware that the presence of man in increasing numbers on our land has created an imbalance. And we have, in my opinion, we have a sacred responsibility to do what we can to correct that imbalance. And this thing with pollinators is one that everybody understands. And when you use monarchs, a familiar icon, to be the focal point of this, everybody gets that.
After a state summit in 2015 with stakeholders representing diverse fields such as conservation, agriculture, academia, and utilities, a formal collaborative called Missourians for Monarchs was formed.
There was a state summit which consisted of the federal, state, NGOs, nonprofit organizations, agricultural businesses, and even the state agricultural entities. And they basically all came together for one purpose, which was to discuss the plight of the monarchs and pollinators in general. And from that is what arose the collaborative that exists today. And it has come together to basically try to put habitat on the ground for monarchs and pollinators in general.
The importance of monarchs and of the newly formed Missourians for Monarchs Collaborative was highlighted by a proclamation by Missouri's governor. Sarah Parker Pauley, director of the Missouri Department of Conservation, shared the governor's message.
Whereas pollinator species such as birds and insects are essential partners of farmers and ranchers in producing much of our food supply, and whereas pollination plays a vital role in the health of our national forests and grasslands, which provide forage, fish and wildlife, timber, water, mineral resources, and recreational opportunities, as well as enhanced economic development opportunities for communities. Whereas a broad coalition of partners known as Missourians for Monarchs have come together to develop a statewide monarch, butterfly, and pollinator conservation plan to address habitat restoration for declining pollinators in Missouri. Now, therefore, I, Eric R. Greitens, Governor of the State of Missouri, do hereby proclaim June 19 through 25, 2017 to be Pollinator Week in Missouri and urge all citizens to recognize this observance.
While meetings, collaborations, and proclamations may organize and help to set the tone, ultimately it takes boots on the ground to create new pollinator habitat.
Well, we have some key goals, but the one that's in the forefront and that's probably most discussed is putting habitat on the ground, monarch-friendly habitat on the ground. And so the overall goal is to put 19,000 new acres per year for 20 years on the ground for monarch-friendly habitat.
That work has already started. In Audrain County, former Missourians for Monarchs coordinator Jason Jenkins visits with area farmer Terry Feel about his newly developed pollinator habitat.
So you said this, how long had this been in soybeans?
I think it's 12 years
12 years?
is what we've had it rotated, soybeans and corn.
Yeah.
There's some milkweed right there.
There you go. See, it'll come up. Even this first year, you'll get some coming up. Let's see if we got any eggs on there. Terry, looky there. It's a monarch egg on the top of the leaf.
I'll be darned, instead of on the bottom.
Yeah, usually they lay them on the bottom, right, right.
I took my ground out of production this year. I was interested in erosion. I had so much erosion and conservation too. So I went with 110 foot all the way around my place for quail. And then the whole center is for monarch butterflies and bees. I love it, I love it. It holds the soil. You got a beautiful something to look at, and I can't see where it's not a win-win situation as far as I'm concerned.
Of course, our state, more than 90% of it is in private hands, and a great majority of that acreage is used for agriculture. So by working with our agricultural producers and those people within the collaborative that represent agriculture, we've been working to encourage folks to put lands that maybe aren't the best for agriculture, but could be great for pollinator habitat into different conservation programs. So by working together in these areas where maybe people haven't worked together before, we can move the needle for conservation of pollinators.
On the farm, the conservation and creation of monarch and pollinator habitat can not only be good for the environment, it can also improve the bottom line. Derek Steen is the Director of Environmental Programs for both the Missouri Soybean Association and the Missouri Corn Growers Association.
Most farmers know those parts of a field, specific acres in a field even, that are profitable and that are not. And the fact is there are a lot of acres that farmers farm out of convenience that probably are costing them money instead of making them money. And when it's practical, I think a lot of those those acres can be taken out of production and put into a wildlife practice of their choosing and actually improve their bottom line. We would certainly encourage them to consider some habitat that would support pollinators and the monarch butterfly.
But preserving monarchs is not only about hard work on the farm. It's also about fun, with a little education thrown in for good measure.
The other goals that we have that are just as important, and they also help support us in attaining that overarching goal is education and outreach. We have a goal of reaching out and basically just to the general public, bringing the awareness to them, the importance that they are to humans in general.
Oh, Monarch Mania, that completely blew us out of the water. The amount of interest and enthusiasm we saw for this little creature. Folks were there in numbers that none of us expected. We actually had more than 1,400 people on a Thursday come out to learn about the monarch butterfly. According to the folks that we worked with at the Runge Conservation Nature Center, that was the largest weekday event they had ever had, and that nature center has been around for over 20 years. So that was really fulfilling for us to know that what we are doing is resonating with people. But the day was intended to let people know about the importance of conservation of monarchs and pollinators, and let them learn and see the role that they can play, because every Missourian can play a role in monarch and pollinator conservation.
The Summers family in northern Boone County is playing its role. Trudy, a lifelong monarch enthusiast, takes great pleasure in seeing the progress on their pollinator plots.
Our goal has always been to be good stewards of this land. We just feel blessed to have it, and we love nature. We love God's creatures, the animals, and anything we can do to help them, whether it's monarchs, turkey, quail, deer. So I've been reading about the decline of pollinators for years, decades, and I'm not a rocket scientist, but it doesn't take very much thinking to realize that if we don't have pollinators, we don't have food, we don't have flowers, and it's a pretty short walk if you don't have those things. It's exciting to me when I see a monarch anywhere. It's exciting to me. My 93-year-old father-in-law brought 2 of his friends over today to see these pollinator plots. One of the women's daughter and granddaughter want to make a pollinator plot, so now she can tell them about it. And that's the way this works. So it's pretty cool. How far does that ripple go?
Ripples do go a long way. As the Missourians for Monarchs Collaborative plans for 20 years of establishing new pollinator habitat, the children enjoying Monarch Mania may be exploring the mysteries of the monarch with kids of their own before that goal comes to fruition. But hopefully, this group effort will take hold, with long-lasting positive effects for native bees, butterflies, and people.